identify the low bidder like what we've done for the June agenda and kind of fast track this project, and our hope would be to get it done before this fall. And then next year follow up with maybe a second phase for this project. The big issue on this project is that bridge. It's a city-owned bridge, and that's kind of a barrier. We may go on the other side and work on it, but this is the first segment where, because of that curve and there's just not much right-of-way width, people can't walk in the grass. There's no grass to walk on. You got a retaining wall and guardrail. So this is our first priority, and we think we can fast-track it and get it under construction this fall through using in-house and our unit price contract.
Would an engineering study be required?
Well, it would, because we may have to obtain temporary construction easements, and so we need to identify how much and legal descriptions to get the property owners to sign those, as well as if there's some utility conflicts. We need to identify those prior to going into this project, because we'll need to work with utility companies to mitigate those if they occur. So yes, we would have to have a set of construction plans as part of this project.
I think the commission had some questions.
Okay, Commissioner Wilder?
Well, I guess I'll just note right off the bat that I'm absolutely supportive of getting this done. I do still have a question or two. Those studies you're referencing, are those baked into the $50,000?
The unit price contract we have,
Just the $50,000 estimate, is that just for the construction, or does that include the legwork necessary? The studies and the easements, et cetera.
The $50,000 is a lot depending on how much that we can do in-house.
Sure.
And how much we can't. The actual sidewalk itself is probably a little bit less than 50, but then your engineering design work. Now, as far as study, it's not a traffic study or anything like that. It's just a set of plans so that we can determine, really we need that to determine whether we can do the earthwork in-house or if we have to hire someone to do that.
So that answers my question. So the $50,000 is a rough estimate for what it would take to do this from this day until the day people are walking on it.
Yeah.
some of the unknowns are like retaining walls.
Sure.
So that's construction set of plans would show us if we can get away with not having to construct retaining walls to hold up the earth that we're cutting into to make the 4-foot wide cut. And that's going to factor into how much it's going to cost. But just some ballpark quotes using our unit prices, $35,000 for the sidewalk, and then we'd have $10,000 or $15,000 to address design and maybe some retaining wall issues.
What's the estimated annual income for the municipal aid fund, and where is the fund at? Where does the fund stand right now?
We annually receive around $600,000, and I believe we're at $1.8 million in the budget. So our annual budget, we try to match spending what we take in, so we kind of leave our principal intact in case there's an emergency, if a road gets washed out, or say there's a road request to the city that maybe a new business moves in and we have some funds to upgrade or do some infrastructure projects with. So our plan is to kind of spend $600,000 for resurfacing and $300,000 to resurface and maintain our infrastructure while keeping that principle intact.
Well, I do think that this project is as appropriate a use of those funds as I can imagine. I would love to see this happen.
Commissioner Turner?
I too have driven down Shingle Lane and seen the foot traffic there, and it's not only scary for a walker, but scary for a driver too. So this is a needed project, and I would certainly support the change in policy for it.
I support as well, and also if there's any, I don't know if there's any grants that might be available as well in regard to safety with pedestrians. I don't know if there's all kinds of random money out there sometimes.
When do you want it built?
It is, right.
Right.
I do have one note to tack onto that, though, which is, and this is something I'd be happy to work with as a private citizen, Jim, but Walk Bike, I know Walk Bike isn't loaded with money or anything, but Walk Bike has a good volunteer base, and the city does have a policy right now whereby anybody can go ahead and get a sidewalk on their street or in their neighborhood if they're willing to front the funds for, I believe,
The labor.
for labor, and the city funds for construction, and I'm not even, or for the materials, and I'm not even advocating that, but just to get a little more community buy-in and buy-in from Walk Bike, I think it'd be really great for you all to organize a fundraiser around this specific project. I mean, I'm sure I could help you pull volunteers together to do that, but even if you all contribute $2,000, even if you all can just raise that amount, I mean, not only does it generate more community awareness for this sort of thing, it would, that level of buy-in, I think, will go a long way, if you'd be happy to consider that. I can talk about that outside of the meeting, because I'm not even asking you as a commissioner, but there's...
I'd be happy to bring that to a board meeting. Yeah.
Great.
Great. Perfect.
Thank you all. Okay. Well, it seems like we got some support for this, Mr. Warren. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
The final discussion item, thank you, Mr. Coff. The final discussion item is one that's just come up recently about an area referred to as the Westwood Common Park area. And Mr. Mueller, we need you to come forward on this subject, please. And Mr. Engel, I guess. A couple of the commission, several commission have heard complaints, I think, from a property owner, and there's been a little confusion, or we need clarification about this common area in Westwood. So if you would introduce the subject.
Sent you all email, as well as the person that had complained. I'd let them know that this was going to be discussed tonight, and whatever happens, I'd let them know the conclusion of it. But in policy, I believe it was before I got here, and it's been done since I've been here, any raw natural land, undeveloped land, common area land, for example, Berry Hill, up on the Villas of Berry Hill has a common area, and it has a large undeveloped tracts of land that has not been developed or started to. The developer's gone under, so the association is responsible for it. Parkside, there's numerous vacant land in town that's owned privately along East-West Connector, along King's Daughter, even on the corner of King's Daughter and Leonardwood Drive. There's a corner there that's this land that hasn't been developed. We don't make people cut the weeds and grass down below 10 inches for those. We never have. That's just the way it's been. This particular individual that was complaining, there's an association. This is an actual freestanding lot that is owned by the association, so it's not one individual. They're in their own association. They have a restriction, like a deed restriction covenants, that says owners that join it are supposed to help maintain that common area. Some maintain it like a golf course. Others maintain it like normal, regular individuals might maintain their yards, and some leave it in a more natural state. It appeared to me that it was it came in as probably a neighbor dispute, because we haven't had the complaint in the past, and it's been this way prior to my being in our town. So we replied telling them this is what our policy is. If it's natural vacant land, we don't go in and try to make people get rid of the undergrowth. There was a specific case in South Frankfort where a neighbor was complaining, and I explained to them that the owner of the natural land was an apartment complex, and they liked it natural, and they felt it provided a better buffer between the single family. And I agreed, and I explained that to the one that was complaining, and explain, there's no rule, if we tell them to cut these weeds, they can clear cut the entire lot, and you'll have no buffer. There's no regulations on that in this area. So they agreed they would rather see the bushes and the undergrowth versus their neighbors. And that's how it's been. On small occasions, it comes up that way, and that's how we've addressed it. It wasn't to the satisfactory conclusion for this particular individual that had called and complained. Mr. Engel of our staff went out there today just to look at it, and he also spoke with an individual that's on the board of their association. They've indicated they have had the same complaint raised to them, and they have determined that it's not a violation of their covenants. The person who's maintaining it, while it's overgrown to some, it is still acceptable maintenance. So they're not going there basically, and if the city commission wants us to change our policy on how we deal with vacant, undeveloped land, I believe in being consistent. We need to do it across town and not just one particular association. I did inform the owner, the citizen that was complaining, that his neighbor the common area adjacent to his backyard isn't going to be the one who's cited. The association is going to be cited, not the individual he's complaining on that's not maintaining it to their satisfaction. And I believe Mr. Engel can explain further at this particular site that it's still probably wouldn't meet a weed, unless we went in and through the bushes, you wouldn't see any weeds, and it's cut up to it, and it's maintained up to it. So it still really isn't a violation unless we want to truly make people get rid of their undergrowth. But I can name several sites throughout the town if you would like, as far as this is how we've always done it. Or that this would change. Parkside, the commercial lots out there, we don't go out there and make them cut it every month. It's underdeveloped. We get phone calls about development. There's construction underway. We've never made someone who's building a structure maintain the weeds while it's being built either. That's the policy we've taken, because we know once it's built, it's finished and finalized, and then once you cut it and maintain it, that standard is what we uphold. So if you had a vacant lot, good example is Rouse and Home Street. There's a corner lot, the city's cut it, I don't know. We are the lawn service, I believe, for that lot. We send notice to the owner, it gets 2-3 foot tall, and then we cut it. And we go over and over on that one. But it's had been previously maintained as a grass yard versus a natural state. So that's the best I can give you. Again, if you want the policy changed, if you'd like me to provide more information to you, I can. But in our view, it's not a violation per our policy and how we've done it. And I'll let Robbie say anything else he wants to say once I addressed it. But
when I went out there today, the property owner that the complaint is on has got a 6-foot privacy fence around the back of their house. Now, there is a section probably about 20 or 30 feet back to the woods, and he does keep that mowed. It is mowed, and the stuff that is actually in there is just saplings and stuff like that are growing up. And you can walk anywhere up and down through there just about and find the same thing up and down through there. And the problem is these two neighbors just don't get along. That's pretty much it, because the person that I talked with said that, they were at their associated meetings all the time complaining about this. And so, we make it a habit just not to get into a neighborhood dispute because, what I consider to be not manicured to the person that there it is. And I say, today when I was there, under our regulations that we have, there was no code violations there. The grass and everything was cut, and there was some flowers growing out back there along the edge of the forest and stuff like that in that common area. And it's a great big area back there. It's a good sized lot, and it's not just one little section there that we're talking about. It goes around. I think there's either 16 or 20 homes that are around this the perimeter of this. And they all go in and mow it and take care of it. And yes, this one, he has not cut, he doesn't have it manicured like Gary said, like a golf course. He's let some of the saplings and stuff grow up in there, and it acts as a big buffer between him and the people that are directly behind them. And so that's what we're dealing with. And we have tried to explain that, but sometimes that's not the answer that people want to hear. So with that, if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, or Gary, or whatever.
The only,
Commissioner Turner?
the only question that I have is, do we have an idea of roughly how many properties this would affect throughout Frankfort, or is it just a large number?
Oh, it's a large number.
I have a map of the CECITA, I don't know the new acronym. Sorry, I was going to say CECITA. And the Chamber and I have been working on vacant land available. They're trying to promote it.
Right.
I made them a map. They asked specifically for like commercial, non-residential. There were numerous tracts in that aspect. But they also wanted city-owned versus non-city owned. And I started amending that this afternoon to add all the residential lots. Terra Linda has a huge, it's supposed to be a golf course. There's a huge common area. It's all natural, it's trees, it's grass, it's woods, it's natural environment, habitat. But that is a huge one that is owned by an individual or association. As far as the Rolling Acres has a subdivision called Kindlewood. It went into foreclosure, the bank took over it, the bank went in and made some improvements to the vegetation and some of the debris, construction debris that was left. But in the back is a 20-acre tract adjacent to East Frankfort Park that is totally natural. But it's still owned by an individual, and so it's speckled throughout the entire town. Not every subdivision, but most subdivision has at least one lot that was never built on, or someone bought it not to build on as a buffer barrier to keep their privacy. And that's more reasons why there's some of the vacant lots out there. They didn't go and do a plat to consolidate it, they just bought it, and I like my natural state. I want to mow what I want to mow and leave it at that, and that's how we've always treated those. Unless we get a complaint and there's a total violation, obviously. But that's been our policy. Again, I told the individual it would require a policy change for me to change my position. They can appeal it to the Board of Zoning Adjustments if they want to appeal it, or they can come appeal it to you. There was a statement that they might want to appeal it to somebody if they had to, and that's their legal right as well. But I did bring it up to you. Hard to put all this in an email, so that's why I suggested we might want to talk about it. But I want to let you know what it was at.
Appreciate it, Drew.
Okay, Commissioner Water.
I don't know, I was thinking Jeff, I was thinking, sorry.
I'll just know that I'm comfortable with our current policy and with your all's ability to enforce the rules on the books evenly. I think we'd be opening up a number of cans of worms if we were to respond to this particular concern and change the policy. Start tinkering with this policy. I don't need to go there.
Okay, is there any inclination on the part of the commission to maybe change our policies? I see none.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks. Now, that brings us down to item number 11, which says closed sessions per 161.810, whatever. Who wants to make a motion for this?
I'll make a motion.
Make it clear for us so we know what that is.
Yes, sir. I would like to make a motion that we go into closed session per KRS 61.810 subsection 1, subsection F, discussing personnel.
Okay, do I have a second? Got second from Commissioner May.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Petty?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Mayor Green?
Yes. Okay, we're in closed session.
What would you say?
Cool with all your stuff? Looks cool. You got all your stuff? Oh, I feel like you, Mayor.
I know.
He doesn't.